Hi everyone, today we're going to be talking about the repeat block and the stamp block. I'm going to start with the repeat block. So this script right here is just a setup script. As you can see, it just sets the sprite back to 0, 0, points it in the right direction, sets the pen color and size, and pen down and clear. And now this script that I'm attaching is going to draw a square. So if we attach that and we click it, you can see it moves forward, turns 90, and does that 4 times in total, waiting 1 second in between, just so we can see what's going on. Except this is kind of a hassle to make, because what if we wanted to make our square slightly bigger? Right? I'd have to go on and change each of these numbers to maybe, let's say, 150 steps instead of 100. And now we get a slightly bigger square. And that's where the power of the repeat block comes in. So I'm going to drag this in here. So the repeat block is a C block, which means that other blocks go inside of it. And what it does is it repeats the blocks inside for some number of times. This is going to be 4 times because a square has 4 sides. So if we run this, it makes our original 100 by 100 square. And if we wanted to make it bigger, let's say twice as large, all we have to do is change that one block, run it again, and it will go. We only changed one block this time instead of 4. However, the direction that we face in really matters. So right now we're pointing in 90, which is right. However, if we point down, you'll notice that now the square, instead of being in this quadrant, is now in this one. And if we try this again, except now pointing left, and then again, it's still in a different place. So the direction matters when you're doing a repeat block. So right now, we're not doing anything too exciting, right? Right now, we're just making squares. However, I'm going to make my pen size a little smaller, let's say 5. And I'm going to create a cool spiral pattern by putting a repeat block inside of another repeat block. So let's consider this code right here that we wrote. This code right here draws a square. I'm going to clear this just so it's more clear. This here draws a square, and that's all it does. However, if we put that within another repeat block, and let's say we repeat it 12 times, and we run this, it's going to draw a bunch of squares, 12 squares to be exact, in the same place. But the way that we make our pattern is by making it rotate in between every block. So we want this to turn a full circle, so 360 degrees divided by 12 is 30. So it's going to turn 30 degrees every time. And now when it runs, it creates this cool looking pointy wheel pattern design thing. And so if we look at this code here, inside of the repeat 12, we're drawing a square, then we're turning 30 degrees, and then repeating this 12 times. So it's going to draw a square, turn 30 degrees, and if I put that weight block in there, maybe it's more clear. It draws a square, turns, draws a square, turns, and etc. Let's just speed that up so it'll finish.
Okay, so another thing that you can do in order to create a pattern is you can start with a sprite that actually is already a pattern, or it is already sort of a drawing. So instead of having the sprite or having the pen draw it out, you can start with a sprite that looks something like this, or it's just like a line drawing. So here, this is just, I went into the costume tools and I just drew a straight line with a rectangle at the top of it, or a square at the top of it. And then what you can ask this to do is you can actually ask it the sprite to stamp itself. So here, let me run this and we'll talk about it in just a second. So you can see that when the flag is clicked, it starts at the origin 0, 0, and it points to the right. So right now, you'll see that when I look at the costumes, this square is on the right side of this straight line, and so it starts in that direction there. If I asked it to point to the left, I clicked it, you can see that it would start like that. And then, so the script goes, go to the origin, point in a certain direction, and then clear. So it always clears the previous drawing. And then it says, set rotation style to all around. That's because the set rotation style is in the motion palette, and it refers to a sprite. Whereas before, when you asked it to repeat, that was repeating a certain action. So if you have a sprite that looks like a drawing and you want that thing to be stamped, you'd ask the rotation style to be all around, left, right, or don't. These are the options for the rotation style right here. So I ask it to repeat where it repeats 8 times, where it stamps, so it makes a copy of itself, and then it turns 45 degrees, and then it waits for a certain amount of time, and then it does it all again 7 more times. So if I took the wait out, you'll see it just sort of instantly happens right there. Another way that we can use the stamp feature is in a program like this, which is really neat. If I click so we'll look at the code in just a second. So if I click the green flag, it will, this pattern is moving around with the mouse, and the color is changing. And if I press the space key, it will change to another sprite. So let's look at what's happening here. So the script that's on the main sprite right here says, so first of all, what you should notice is that the main sprite has 3 different costumes. It has Gobo, Nano, and a costume that's just a ball right here. So when the flag is clicked, the first thing it does is it clears, and then it sets the size of the sprite to 50%. And then forever, it stamps itself down, so it makes a copy of itself. It moves 5 steps, it changes its color, and then it points towards the mouse pointer. That's why when I move my mouse around, it's dragging, it looks like it's dragging a copy of itself all around. And so it's also then randomly picking a number of degrees, 30 degrees to the left or 30 degrees to the right. And then if it gets to the edge of the screen, it bounces. And then you'll see that there's a sprite that says, this sprite right here, it's really hard to see, but it's the script that, or the writing that shows up at the top when the flag is clicked. It says press the space bar to change the shape. So it's just instructions on how to use this program. That's actually a sprite. So that sprite's script says, when green flag is clicked, go to the front, show yourself for 5 seconds, and then hide yourself. And that's why after 5 seconds, that goes away. The clear button works where if you click on the clear button, so it's just, again, it's just a sprite. If you click on it, it just tells everything to clear on the stage. Okay, so that's a good way to make a program like this. You create a sprite with a few different costumes. You ask it to stamp itself, so stamping is just making a copy of itself, and then you make it sort of drag around with the mouse and change some sort of effect. Here, if you change this by like fisheye, you would see a different, you can see this little guy is looking really kind of crazy, but it's always red, right? Because you ask it to just change the fisheye and not the color effect. Whereas if you ask it to do any of these other things, it will change it, but not the color. And that's it. So we went over the stamp today, and we went over the power of the